What's going on, guys? It's Megan, and in today's video, I'm going to be breaking down how I build training plans that will actually transform your physique. If you're new to my channel and you don't know who I am, I'm a coach who focuses on transforming you from the inside out, so working on your mindset to then give you the physical results so that you become the person who always has your dream physique. And in that process, we need to make sure that we're applying proper training principles that will actually give us physical results that we can see. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the chart that I go through when figuring out how to build that for my clients. Each individual client gets a different plan dependent on the things that I'm going to discuss in this chart. Without further ado, I'm going to send you to my computer now where we'll discuss everything that I look at when it comes to building a plan to get you physical results that you can see in the mirror. Before we hop into the chart, I have some of my personal examples here on the side of the screen, and this is all through an application of training. Obviously other things, but right now we're focusing mainly on training because that's very important. So in order to make sure that we have our dream physique, it's not really just a weight loss journey. You want to build muscle so that you look lean and toned when you do lose the fat. If you do not build muscle and you just focus so much on losing the fat and the scale dropping, you're going to end up a smaller, probably still skinny fat version of yourself that doesn't look lean and toned, that doesn't look muscular. And even if you want to just tone up or whatever, you're going to have to build muscle. I recommend that you build muscle whenever you're on a weight loss journey, because once that fat is gone and there is nothing there, it's still not going to look in the way that you're probably expecting it to. And so building that muscle will give you that look once you're able to shed enough of the fat. And so you can just see me here at different points in my journey. And here's some examples of some clients that applied, obviously, the training plan that I built out for them using the chart that I'm about to show you guys. And then they were able to see visible and physical results when applying that training plan. Obviously, I handled the majority of it and all they had to do was execute, but it's the same principles. You're just going to have to make sure that you execute on your end. So go ahead and pause here if you want to look at their example, and you can go back and pause if you want to look at mine. So first, we're going to want to look at your starting point. This is going to be things like your current body composition. Are you overweight? Are you skinny fat? What's the goal here, right? Because if you're overweight, the goal is going to be major fat loss first, right? So we need to make sure that we get you close enough to baseline where now we can train efficiently like athletes. When we carry too much body fat or too much excess fat, it's hard for us to train as an athlete would train. So that's going to be the number one goal. Whereas if you're skinny fat, we can prioritize tweaking things with nutrition and then implementing the proper training plan right away because you don't have as much fat to lose. And so figuring out, be real with yourself, look in the mirror and figure out, where you're at. Have you ever picked up a dumbbell before? Have you ever been to the gym? Do you know how to train? Same thing goes for, looking at yourself in the mirror. Realistically, where are you? And then determine what your goal is. Now, everyone that comes to me, we have to break down what their goals are, because just saying that you want to lose fat, build muscle, that's very broad. The more detailed we can get, the easier it'll be to execute because we have more clarity on what we're trying to strive for, right? So the examples that I showed you before, obviously, they wanted to lose fat and build muscle, but some of them said, okay, I want to be able to increase my pull-ups, right? So the girl that was on the left, she wanted to be able to get better at doing pull-ups, right? At the time, I don't even think when we first started, if I'm not mistaken, she could maybe do one or two. And it was like, your average, basically like a chin up, right? So not even an actual wide grip pull up where you're focusing on utilizing majority of your lats to get you up, right? And that's a common goal for a lot of girls is being able to do some pull ups. So that was hers. And then the guy that was on the right, he wanted to develop his chest and back more than anything. So of course we take those things into consideration. And, a lot of it is personal preference too, which we're going to get into the chart. But having those detailed goals and figuring out what you really want to do is better than just, oh, I want to lose fat and build muscle, right? It's a little too broad. It's kind of hard to stick to because it's not really personalized to you. Everyone wants to lose fat and build muscle. So that kind of leads me into the analyzing the goal part, right? So let's use my girl on the left there, her example of wanting to be able to increase the amount of pull-ups that she can do. So that can give us a structure as to how we're going to program it based on that specific goal, right? So obviously, pull-ups are primarily back, a little bit biceps. We're going to work on developing her back, right? And then that's also going to help us have checkpoints and monitoring when we do implement that strategy that's tailored towards that specific goal, right? So for example, let's say that if she wanted to increase her pull-ups, then I would program something for her where we would be obviously testing that because that's the only way for it to get better. And she would be doing assisted pull-ups or something like that. So we'd have certain checkpoints where we would monitor the amount of resistance she's adding. So making sure that there's less and less resistance on the assisted pull-up machine to make sure that she's growing. So we'll set certain checkpoints up on a weekly or monthly basis, and then monitoring, okay, how does her back development look? And is she getting stronger? Is she able to decrease that resistance? And that'll kind of tell us how to ensure if she's progressing, right? There's other metrics that you can look for, but again, because I'm focusing this video solely on training and not on nutrition or any other things, I want to make sure that the checkpoints and the monitoring pair alongside the training aspect. So obviously, if she's progressively getting better at the movement, that'll give us kind of some insight as to, if she's getting where she wants to be. Sometimes when we're trying to get to our goals, right? So we determine the goal and we're trying to figure out how to get there. We don't have any checkpoints. We just hope and pray that, okay, in a year, hopefully we'll be able to do that. But having checkpoints for every 4 weeks, every 8 weeks, every week, whatever, is going to help us make sure that we're on track because we don't want the whole year to pass by or the whole 6 months to pass by and we weren't on track the whole time because we weren't checking or monitoring it. So just being more detailed with your goals and then setting little benchmarks for you along the way to ensure that you're going to get there in a timely manner. Because the last thing we want to do is waste time. You guys know I'm very big on efficiency. So now that we've analyzed the goal and we have a good idea of some benchmarks and checkpoints, we can now look at her lifestyle and her schedule, or your lifestyle and your schedule. So when we see the goal that we have, now we can take a few steps back from that goal and plan as to how we're going to get there. Now, I included lifestyle and schedule because as much as I talk about discipline and how you need to get shit done, don't be unrealistic with things, right? If you have a job and, 5 kids, don't sit here and try to program 7 days a week because that's discipline. That's stupid. That's not discipline. Discipline is showing up when you're supposed to show up, but don't build a plan that's just not realistic. Like at the end of the day, this is life. Like build it around your schedule. So we have a general idea or outline of when we're going to be able to go to the gym that kind of tells us what frequency we should have to be able to make sure that we're hitting everything adequately. And then it also tells us, okay, we have realistically X amount of hours per week. This is how we're going to break it up. And this is how we're going to break up every single day. So this just, like I said, gives us the split outline and the frequency. And you just want to be realistic with this because sometimes people bite off more than they can chew and they program 7 days a week. And then when their kids need attention and then their job needs attention and they don't hit that 7 days a week mark, they kind of start to feel a little bit insecure and lack confidence. But it wasn't really anything wrong with them. They were just programming something that was just not like realistic in terms of life. So after that, let's get into your personal preference. Now, this one, why are you pointing down? It's supposed to be going up here. There we go. There we go. So now let's go ahead. I want to close these so we can minimize distractions. So now let's go ahead and discuss personal preference. Now, I am including personal preference because this is something that I've understood with a lot of my clients and also with myself. We'll see a lot of things online and heard from other people, other trainers and coaches and stuff like that, where they'll say, don't do this movement. This is more optimal. Now, I understand what they're saying, but sometimes they don't preface that by saying this is the most optimal in terms of science. Now, when it comes to coaching my clients, the most optimal plan for them in terms of nutrition, in terms of training, and in terms of just their lifestyle is going to be what they're going to adhere to. So when I'm onboarding a new client, I ask them, what is your current split? What are you already doing? And do you enjoy that? If they enjoy it, perfect. I'm going to build it as closely as I can to that, but just tweak it in terms of making it more optimal now that I know what they like. Because the most optimal thing for anyone is what they enjoy, plus using science. Obviously, I'm not going to have you doing something that isn't going to build muscle and waste your time, but I am going to do my best to incorporate things that you enjoy because that's what you're going to be most likely to stick to. And so when it comes to personal preferences, figure out what exercises do you already like and what do you want to develop within your physique, right? Do you want to develop your glutes? Do you want to develop your quads? And so when we look at the exercises they like and what they personally choose to develop and what they want to grow, then we can now optimize their plan based on that. That's the approach that I take, and it's been something that has kept my clients a lot more consistent because they genuinely enjoy the movements and the things that they do. And I encourage you to do so because what you enjoy, you will continue to do. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to want to go to the gym always and this is going to be the most fun that you've ever had in your life. That's where discipline's going to have to kick in. You're going to have to show up when life gets hard, when things get tough and you're stressed and you're busy and the last thing that you want to do is go. But for the most part, these should be things that you enjoy. And now that we've kind of discussed personal preferences, your lifestyle, your schedule, look at your goals, all that stuff, where you're currently starting from, let's go over a couple general rules when building your plan. So if you have a paper and a pen out right now and you're trying to write down, how you're going to structure your split and how you're going to do this, I'm going to give you a couple general rules that you need to follow to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck when you do show up to the gym. Now, this specific training I'm giving you here is to help build the base under the fat that you may already be carrying. And so we'll utilize nutrition and cardio for fat loss. Right now, this is going to be general rules to help you build that base so that when you do lose that fat, you look good and not just like a skinny fat version of yourself. So let's go ahead and get into these rules here. And so first, train in order of priority. So you notice how I set up their personal preference in whatever body parts that you want to develop or parts of your physique that you want to develop. Now, you can go through different phases where you focus on different parts of your body, but in terms of training on the day-to-day and your weekly stuff, put the exercises of the body part or area of your body that you want to develop most first. So as you progress through training, each set becomes less and less effective because your central nervous system accrues fatigue and you're just more tired. So you can't perform them as effectively and efficiently as possible to be able to get as much muscle growth as you do at the beginning of the workout. So train in order of priority, right? If I wanted to grow my back and my hamstrings, when I hit legs, hamstrings are coming first. When I hit upper body, back's coming first. And then you can get into the nitty gritty, like if you're hitting back and you want to develop your lats or you want to develop your rhomboids and your traps and more so your upper back, you can pick exercises that target those and put them first. But for the sake of keeping this simple, just choose the body part or whatever that you want to develop first, put that at the beginning of your workouts, and then that will see the most growth. So next up, let's look at intensity and progressive overload. Now, in order to make sure that the muscle is actually growing, we have to continuously challenge it. In order to challenge it, we need to have proper intensity and progressive overload. When we go to the gym, we must be intentional. We cannot show up and curl the same weight for 3 months straight and expect to see visible changes, because that weight will no longer become hard and our body will adapt and it'll no longer be difficult. And so in order to see muscle growth occur, in order to be more toned, more lean, more have some shape to you, you need to be challenging yourself when you go lift. And so intensity at the beginning of your fitness journey, I encourage you to push as hard as you can to failure, because a lot of the times as beginner lifters, you don't really understand true muscular failure because your brain will fail before your body actually does. And so when you tell a beginner to train to failure, realistically, they're probably going to have more reps in reserve simply because they just don't understand how it feels. So I encourage you to explore failure. What does it feel like? Right? Try it out on some machines and see what it feels like to not even be able to get one more rep out, just so that you can understand. You want to say, hey, am I able to add 5 pounds to my squat or 20 pounds to my squat? Am I able to get one more rep on my squat? Am I able to do something like that? That's what progressive overload looks like, right? So each week we're getting stronger. Goes hand in hand with intensity. So just make sure you're always challenging yourself, whether you're adding weight, whether the reps become easier than they were last week, or maybe you're able to get 1 to 2 more reps at the same weight. That's how you know that you're progressing. And it's important that we continue to prioritize doing those things every session or every week, or at least try to, right? Just so we can make sure that the muscles constantly being stimulated, because if it's not, it will have absolutely no reason to grow. Next, when it comes to reps and sets, this can be a little bit confusing for people, but if you are at the beginning of your journey or you just don't already have size, I would stay away from the low volumes. Now, I see a lot of people that are like science-based lifters and stuff like that saying, oh, I only do 2 sets. And sometimes that even applies to me. But as a beginner, you need the volume. So 4, 3 sets, 8 to 12 reps, perfect, great for hypertrophy. The reason why you need the volume is obviously to increase the size, right? So we can utilize volume and weight instead of just focusing on weight, because you're not at that level where you can do the low volume. And number 2, if you're at the beginning of your journey and you're only doing 2 sets of everything, you're not really going to be very good at the movement. You can get more reps in, you'll get better at performing the movement, you'll have better form, and it'll give you more of an opportunity to grow. The low volume stuff doesn't really apply to people that haven't built the base yet. So for sets per exercise, you can do 3 to 4 sets depending on how much you want to develop that muscle group and where you're placing it within the workout. And then in terms of reps, a great rep range for hypertrophy and muscle growth is 8 to 12. For the sake of simplicity, just stick with that. Next, something that I struggled with at the beginning of my journey was trying to target every single muscle group and make sure that everything was even, when in reality, you can do training phases. So let's say for 8 to 12 weeks, you build a split and you run that, and that split is focused on developing, like I said, back and hamstrings. And then once that split is over in 12 weeks or 8 weeks, you can switch over to developing your shoulders and maybe your glutes, something like that, right? So you don't have to focus on everything all at once. You can take your body through a whole year-long transformation. Hopefully, if you're watching this, you make it a lifelong transformation. But you can take yourself in training phases where you work on developing certain parts of your upper and lower body instead of trying to figure out how to do it all at once. And then realistically, when you do build these plans, you can run them for 8 to 12 weeks and then keep everything the same. And week in and week out, you can increase, like I said, the ease at which you perform the movement, the amount of weight that you're able to put on, or the amount of reps that you're able to do. So for example, I have some clients that are on year-long programs, and that allots 4 sets of 12 weeks, which means that they'll have 4 different physique development phases that I will run them through. Now, I will be planning this for them, but you're watching this through the lens of planning it for you. So figure out, okay, for the first 3 months of the year or the first 3 months of my year-long transformation, I want to work on this. And then you build a training split that you follow for those 12 weeks where you focus on developing a part of your upper body and a part of your lower body. And then you can switch or transition once that 12-week period is over. That way you have a well-rounded physique within the year. Instead of working on the full body aspect for the whole year, you can go through different phases. That way you're intentional, able to focus or give your full focus to different parts of your body that you want to develop. Next, I have every single client do cardio separate from their weightlifting or after their training. So like I said, when I was talking about training in order of priority, the central nervous system accrues fatigue when training. And so if you do your cardio before your training, you're taking away the mental capacity you would have to be able to push in the fashion necessary to build as much muscle as possible when it comes to the actual lifting. So if you spend the first, like, I'm not talking about a warm up, like a 5 minute walk on the treadmill just to get your blood flowing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your actual cardio session where it's focused solely on fat loss. Now, we wouldn't want to do it at the beginning of the workout because that'll add to that capacity of fatigue that we have, that we accrue as we progress through lifting. So we don't want to get ourselves all tired before we go train because then we're mentally going to be fatigued. Maybe not as physically fatigued, but we're going to accrue mental fatigue that's going to inhibit us from training as hard as we can because, like I said, your brain fails before your body does. And so we want to avoid that at all costs. So I'll have my clients either do cardio afterwards, after they've done their lifting, or they can just do it totally separate, right? I have some clients, and even myself, sometimes I'll do my cardio just on a rest day. So I don't even have to worry about it. I can focus on just doing my training when I train and then on cardio on a rest day just to get the blood pumping because I'm not training that day. Some people do their cardio in the morning and then they train after work. To help them have better cognitive brain function before work. So cardio, you get up, you get your blood pumping, you get sweating. Sometimes it helps people and it also helps myself, get better results at work, more focused because it helps wake them up. And then after work, they'll go train, or vice versa. They'll train in the morning and then they'll do cardio after work to blow off some steam, whatever the case may be. But just know that that's how you can go about it. You don't have to, do them all in one bout, but just make sure that majority of your focus is going towards the actual muscle growth part, which is going to be done in the lifting. Cardio doesn't require as much, mental focus. So don't focus too much on that. All you have to do is show up. You don't even have to think. Versus when you go to the gym, you need to be intentional. You need to be there. You can't just go through the motions. Whereas cardio, you just got to move your feet. And next, just to make sure that we're doing this in a sustainable way and we're able to build as much muscle as we possibly can, we need to focus on recovery because that is what's going to help us have the longevity in order to make this a part of our lifestyle. And also, when we're recovering is when our body is building muscle. So we need to make sure that it has the opportunity to do so. So when it comes to recovery, pre and post training, I recommend pre-training. You can do dynamic stretches. So these are stretches where you're moving, and then static stretches are going to be post-training to make sure that you don't have any cramps or anything like that. Nothing's tight. And then you want to make sure that you're getting enough sleep to support the training that you're doing. So 8 hours of restorative REM sleep, not light sleep. And so for me to be able to do this, a part of what I do, now this is not a part of training, but a part of what I do is having ashwagandha and magnesium glycinate to help me get into deep sleep. And then also implementing rest days. Now, I want you to build your training plan around your work schedule. So if you have to train back to back to back and then you have to rest on the weekends, so be it. But utilize your rest days to be able to actually recover. They're just as important as your training days. So if you can have, like, let's say you're training for 4 days a week. Let's say you have upper, lower, and then you throw a rest day in the middle. That would be ideal. But again, work schedule, life schedule, that comes first. We can't always be athletes first. I know that we have to be, I know that we all have responsibilities that we have to take first, but rest days are beneficial. I like to keep rest days in my back pocket for if I wake up and I don't feel good, or if I, accidentally sleep past my alarm or something like that. So I don't feel like shit about myself. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this a rest day. And, I just kind of keep them in my back pocket. But on those rest days, like I said, making sure that you're actually taking that time to rest because it's very important. Now, that is everything that I look at when it comes to figuring out how to build a plan for myself or for my clients so we can get actual physical results that we can see in the mirror. If you have any questions about implementing this for yourself or how you can do it for your own journey, I will leave a link in the description to book a call with me and we'll see if you're a good fit for the program. I'll also leave my Instagram linked in the description of this video. If you have any questions at all, you can DM me there and I'll get back to you with a voice message. Also, I have a video that I've made about how to do the same thing, but with nutrition and food for fat loss and muscle growth, which I will link in the corner over here, which you can see. As always, guys, remember to do hard shit, be confident, have the courage to be uncomfortable, but most importantly, don't forget how much I'm rooting for y'all. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you want to see some more. I'd love to help you guys on this journey. I love to see your comments about how you're progressing, and it genuinely makes me happy to see you guys getting after it, being disciplined, being just absolute killers. That is everything for me today, guys. I love y'all. I'll see you in the next video. Thank y'all so much for watching.